Thanks for being here today.
You.
Good. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about security to start off. What do you think that users actually care about security, or is it just that their assets show up instantly and relatively cheap?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially this year. I think as an industry, we've seen more and more hacks still, which is kind of surprising in 2026, or not necessarily even hacks, but just like configuration problems. I think security matters differently to different people. There is the crypto native audience who has been through doing their own research for years and understands that like different protocols, there's a certain level of education maybe that you need to have as a baseline. But I think with the Hyperliquid ecosystem, it's interesting because it's actually attracted net new users. And those people are very used to experiences where things just do show up fast and cheap, and they don't call into question that maybe there's a risk involved. So I think we need to evolve to serve that. And really, my answer is that like there shouldn't be a compromise. Across, for instance, prides itself on being fast, cheap, and secure, and to not forfeit one for the other. So I think it depends on the user, but like going forward, security should be built in.
That's great to hear that you're aiming for no compromises with any of this. And so when you look at Hyperliquid, how important is it that a cross feels kind of like a deposit button versus like a cross-chain bridge?
Yeah. So like I said, it comes down to the net new users, I think. And also just people that have abandoned other forms of or other areas in crypto to really focus on trading, and 24/7 trading has taken off so heavily as I think like the main product market fit of our industry. So as a bridge, our goal is almost to be invisible. Like, I think people shouldn't necessarily have to know that they're bridging, and they certainly shouldn't have to think about things as granularly as a step in the process of moving my token on this blockchain to my token on this blockchain. We really want to simplify that as much as possible and just be under the hood of applications without users noticing. And that's why, yes, it's extremely important that a cross feels like a deposit, because that's what these people are used to. If they're using platforms like Hyperliquid or Outcome or Hyperbeat or any of these emerging like major trading platforms, there shouldn't be these extra steps for somebody to have to leave that flow and go use a third-party service and think about where their balances are. So we've done a lot of work under the hood to make that really seamless via our API and bridging and depositing in a single action. But yeah, we're continuing to improve that. And actually, as of this week, are integrated directly in part of Hyperliquid's flow. So looking forward to deepening that too.
Very cool. Very cool to hear that. That's relatively new, so very nice. As far as going across or across thinking about like free or like one-to-one stablecoin transfers with like no slippage and fees and like routing to worry about, is that kind of the future you guys are envisioning?
Yeah. I think as the industry matures, for a long time, there have been these various burdens placed on the user, whether it was education or, just trying to minimize risk themselves, or actually coming straight down to the fees. Like you have a gas fee, you have slippage occasionally, you have all of these other things that a user might incur. And we're trying to minimize that as well, because if we're competing with like a TradFi experience, a user shouldn't really have to worry about like the difference between USDG and USDC, or USDH and USDC. Really, they just want to have USD wherever they're going. So we started this one-to-one bridging thing where a dollar basically equals a dollar, and we find a way to cover those fees in between so that it's not being passed off to the end user. And I think that's really important. The demand was definitely validated. But whether it's one-to-one or it's just a fixed fee and it's predictable, that's also something we're interested in continuing to grow.
Got you. With native markets and the USDH, like obviously you guys did that one-to-one bridging, and what did you guys learn from that? And do you think that's kind of the staple or the path forward here for stables?
Yeah, so our partnership with native markets was a really great case study to sort of validate this demand of one-to-one bridging. They became the primary stablecoin of Hyperliquid end of last year, I guess. And we offered free bridging directly from other stablecoins into USDH. And what I would say is, obviously people liked that. But it also set a bit of a precedent, and we saw other bridge providers or wallets or aggregators offering the same thing. And I think it was great to see that standard kind of catch on, and people recognize that we're in almost a new phase of abstraction, which I'm calling dollar abstraction, because we've been through this account abstraction, chain abstraction, trying to really like minimize details in so many ways for crypto users. And I think the dollar is the next step of that, where again, like it should just be USD or whatever currency you're trading. And especially somebody coming from fiat on-ramps or somebody that doesn't have a background in this stuff, that doesn't know why all of these different stablecoin issuers have like a different appendage to USD.
Gotcha. And when you talked about this a little bit earlier, but like who should absorb the bridging costs long term? Like where do you see that going? Is that to users, to apps, to the ecosystems? Where are we seeing this?
So in general, the way we think about it is to try to reduce the burden on users as much as possible. But also I think to use Visa as an example and taking like the best of traditional payment infrastructure, you don't think about fees when you're tapping your credit card because a merchant pays that fee in order to be able to offer Visa as a payment solution. And so I'm particularly interested in merchants fronting the costs or the applications themselves. But I think if you want people to really use your product in competition with the other options that they have in TradFi, then you have to be thinking about that experience without, again, like kind of without compromise, like making it just as good as another application that they're used to. And I think part of that is lower fees or perhaps no fees or predictable fees, whatever it is. But I think the free model is something that I look forward to hopefully taking over and capturing more and more ground.
Yeah, perfect. You kind of touched on something earlier here is one of the latest things that's gone on with that cross, but what else is coming up next year for you guys this year?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of the exciting work for Across is under the hood with our API. We've spent a lot of time responding to demand from our integrators, and we're under the hood of people like Uniswap and MetaMask and Coinbase, now Hyperliquid, but serving the demand in the best way possible, whether or not that's like combining bridge and swap, combining bridge and deposit, making the whole experience faster, cheaper, better. But one of the most exciting things that I think we're working on is supporting larger and larger transfer sizes. So we're known as an intense-based bridge, which has served a lot of users very well for transfer sizes kind of under the whale size mark. But with expanding our offering to offer CCTP and now Paxos Labs' new product Transit, integrating those things into our API actually allows us to offer millions per transfer and support that much more like institutional and whale-sized clientele. So yeah, coming this summer, there's a lot to look forward to, as well as hopefully deeper integration with Hyperliquid too. Yeah, fast, cheap, secure.
Wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for coming on, and Hyperliquid.
Hyperliquid, thank you.